Now, I don't have children, but if I did, these are the quarterbacks and tight ends I would bet their lives on breaking out in 2025 fantasy football. Just a general rule of thumb as I'm looking at the quarterback landscape for this year, as I've done a bunch of drafts already this offseason, I'm going to go one of two ways, one of two strategies. I am either going to overpay for the elite quarterbacks, you are overpaying for overproduction, or we're simply going to draft a sophomore quarterback because this class went crazy last year and should go crazier in year 2. Which brings me to the first QB on this list, and that is none other than Caleb Williams, the legendary college prospect out of USC in Chicago now. Whole new regime, whole new personnel, whole new year. I'd go as far as saying Caleb's year last year, you can kind of put it on par with Trevor Lawrence's rookie year with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. Just a bloodbath. The stories coming out of just how useless the coaching staff was there in Chicago with Caleb Williams and helping him, or the lack of helping him progress, is what really makes me feel comfortable about counting on the Caleb Williams breakout for next year. Now, when we start to look at the actual personnel around Caleb, what gets me excited here is you bring in Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson has done nothing less than perfection out there in Detroit for the last couple of years as the OC. He is now the head coach. That offense and that offensive system is going to get righted. We have DJ Moore as a legit wide receiver 1. We have Rome Odunze on the cusp of breaking out. We have Luther Burden, a top 40 pick. We have Colston Loveland, a top 10 pick. We got some depth with Cole Kmet, and one of the problems last year was the offensive line. They now have 2 very highly drafted capital tackles, along with the entire interior of their offensive line shored up this offseason, taking the Falcons center Drew Dahlman, getting Joe Tooney, getting Jonah Jackson. So you now have a legit offensive line in front of Caleb. But what I want to exemplify here is good offensive coordinators, good systems give quarterbacks easy ways to produce and dominate. And when we look at last year and we look at what Ben Johnson and the Lions did compared to what the Bears did, Ben Johnson and the Lions used pre-snap motion on 66.2% of their plays, 4th highest in the NFL. They use play action on 34.7% of their plays, the number 1 rate in the NFL. Let's take a look at the Bears. Pre-snap motion on 47.9% of their plays. That is almost 20% less plays using pre-snap motion. That is just the easiest way to get some of your guys and your wide receivers open in the middle of the field. Play action cut Detroit's rate in half. 17.8% of the Chicago Bears' plays last year were play action, 32nd amongst quarterbacks in the NFL. Everything is going to be different. Nothing was the same, as Drake would say. It's also really important to remember Caleb Williams is a dual threat quarterback. It's one of the reasons why you have to love this sophomore class and what they did as rookies coming in. You have a legit pack of 5, basically 5 dudes that are now dual threat quarterbacks coming into the fantasy position. And this is one of the reasons why when I make a quarterback rankings list and I have Kyler Murray at quarterback 14 or 15 or 16, and you always get the pushback of, oh, well, Kyler Murray's been a top 10, top 11, top 12 guy, even in his down years. It's yes, but the influx of talent that we've got at the quarterback position over the last couple of years where those guys have not hit their ceilings, the Caleb Williamses, the Drake Mays, those types of guys who have the same type of upside that Kyler does are now coming into the league. So Caleb Williams in college, 27 rushing touchdowns in 3 seasons. I'll do the simple math for you. That is 9 rushing touchdowns a year. If you don't think they're going to use him creatively on the goal line and get him moving with his legs, get the play action rate really, really high, I don't know what to tell you. He's got as much arm talent as anybody in the league. Yes. Does he have his flaws and his problems? Yes. He holds on to the ball for too long. But now with a good offensive line, he'll be able to hold on to the ball for a little bit longer without taking 70,000 sacks. So wipe everything that you knew from last year's Caleb Williams and last year's Chicago Bears and refresh yourself for this year. We're obviously not going to talk about Jaden Daniels. He already broke out everywhere. But the next guy up in the NFL draft was Drake May to the New England Patriots. Did he have some flaws in his games? Absolutely, and we'll get to that. With Drake May, when you're watching him play, I loved everything about his game last year as a rookie. And just taking a step back from the fantasy stats, when you actually watch the Patriots last year, just from a football guy's perspective, when May was inserted at the QB position, this team, their energy and their fight through the end of the game went from down here through the fucking roof. The effort there was crazy because that team started to believe with Drake May under center that they could win every game, every fourth quarter. Despite how bad they were, despite how many points they were down by, Drake May single-handedly gave this franchise hope week in and week out. Now you start to look at what they did this offseason, right? Mike Vrabel comes in, Josh McDaniels comes in, and then they spent in free agency, not only on the defensive side of the ball. The weakest point of the Patriots last year was, I mean, they had a lot of weak points, lack of playmakers, but the offensive line was brutal. So what did they do this offseason? They made that the priority. You draft Will Campbell, 4th overall. You go into free agency, you grab Morgan Moses, you grab Garrett Bradbury, you grab Wes Schweitzer. So now you have 4 likely new starters on the offensive line. You go out, sign Stephon Diggs to be your 1. You draft Kyle Williams. You draft Travion Henderson to bring some real speed and playmaking ability outside. I even think Matt Collins was a really good add to this receiver room, someone who's a veteran, someone who can kind of like guide the younger guys, someone who can come out there and be a possession receiver. They're probably still a year away from having like a good receiving room, but it's a very, very large step in the right direction. Why I love Josh McDaniels coming in, why I do love the fact that like Drake Maye, I think, is kind of weapons proof, is how athletic he was. Josh Norris tweeted this out. Drake Maye was 6th among all quarterbacks in rushing yards per game, and you can count the number of designed runs that were called for him on one hand. I don't know the number, but it's got to be 5 or fewer. He is a great scrambler. When you look at his scramble rate, he was 3rd in the NFL behind only Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. Do we want him to be that high? Probably not, unless you're Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels, but that does speak to like the playmaking ability of who Drake Maye is if the play does start to break down. That scramble rate is going to be really high when you have receivers that cannot separate, obviously. And you look at Josh McDaniels coming in. Nate Tice tweeted this out from The Athletic, went back and looked at the design quarterback runs from the 2020 Pats offense, which had Cam Newton at quarterback and Josh McDaniels as the OC. A lot of good stuff from that season, both concept-wise and Newton being excellent. This is an area that Drake Maye could excel in under McDaniels. All right, so that is like something that gets me excited. We talk about how Drake Maye had no runs designed for him. Like the step up in coaching from Jared Mayo last year to Mike Vrabel this year is going to be extremely noticeable. And Josh McDaniels as the OC, I think he's a cool OC. And I think he's going to be very creative with how he uses Drake Maye in the run game. So Drake Maye feels like the most obvious like value, super high upside guy that you can get in drafts right now around like quarterback 15, 16, 17. And we'll just keep moving down the sophomore quarterback draft class, all right? J.J. McCarthy, he is someone that I've come around to wholeheartedly this year. He will be a very, very big target of mine in Superflex leagues. And the very first thing I want to point out, and I tweeted this yesterday, if you're not following me on Twitter, you can go do so at Nick Ercolano. J.J. McCarthy's passing touchdown line right now per BetMGM is set at 25.5. Now, if you're not really in tune with Vegas lines, that's a pretty damn high number if you're not in the like Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, like Jared Goff-ish tier where the team is just incredible. Oh, I also want to throw in for Drake Maye. The Patriots are favored in 11 of their games this year, and their schedule is one of, if not the easiest in the entire NFL. So chalk that up for another positive. But back to McCarthy, 25.5 passing touchdowns. That line per Vegas, J.J. McCarthy's, is higher than Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Tua, Matt Stafford, Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Trevor. Basically every single QB in the NFL that's not named Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, and Joe Burrow. Everybody else, he has a higher passing touchdown line than. And when I tweeted this out, I mean, my followers over there just kind of did the work for me. You know, we have everybody replying about why this is the case, and it's very, very obvious to me. It's like, why would J.J. McCarthy have a higher touchdown line in Vegas than all these other guys? It's not really about J.J. McCarthy. It's not a hot take. It's not any sort of fucking mystery as to why this is the case. The offense and the system is so quarterback statistically friendly. So this is why you should be drafting more J.J. McCarthy. It's like you look at Nick Mullins put up 300 and 2 400-yard games in 5 games at the end of 2023. The offensive system and talent around him. Sam Darnold threw for 35 touchdowns last year, and they didn't think enough of him to retain his services. Like Sam Darnold, after having 10 fucking terrible years, Sam Darnold went out and had a damn near MVP type season. And it's like, yeah, J.J. McCarthy, he's kind of like a rookie. He's not a rookie. Like, he's been around the facility, the coaching staff, and the practices, the scheme. He's had a full year to understand the playbook. Like, yes, of course, he's going to have a little bit of a mental roadblock as someone who hasn't got out there on the field and practiced these plays. But you can't just say he's a rookie. He is not necessarily a sophomore in terms of experience, but he's not a pure rookie either. The offense, like, the system has damn near zero flaws in it when you look at the whole thing in totality. Like, KOC is one of, if not the best offensive minds and play callers in the NFL. at this moment. So you have the passing friendly statistics that are just going to come as a floor. You have the weapons, right? Jay Jeffs, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. You have 3 first-round pass catchers right there. You have Aaron Jones extended in the backfield. You have Jordan Mason coming in. So you have 2, I think, really, really solid running back options, which the receivers are way better than the running back options, meaning I think they're going to lean more on the passing game. But also, this offensive line is pretty damn good. They now get Christian Darrisaw back, who got hurt halfway through last year. He is one of the best tackles in the NFL. Him and Brian O'Neill are basically one of, if not the best tackle duos in the NFL. They went out, signed Will Fries from the Colts, 5 years, $88 million. They also brought along Ryan Kelly to play center because Garrett Bradbury left. They used their first round pick this year on an offensive lineman, Donovan Jackson, out of Ohio State. So, like, where are the holes on this offense? I don't see any. And just look what Sam Darnold did. And you might have questions about J.J. McCarthy as a QB, and that's super valid. But my point is, a lot of the times when fantasy players are in good situations, it doesn't really matter what your personal take on them as a talent is. And if you go back to J.J. McCarthy in college, like a lot of the hesitance on calling him a good quarterback was the fact that he played in that Michigan system. And that makes sense. Like, they just run the ball really heavy. They play defense. They don't ask the quarterback to do a lot. But J.J. McCarthy, in that final year, the championship year, 2023, top 5 in adjusted completion percentage with a top 12 yards per attempt number. And I want to keep circling back to that, like, athleticism of this quarterback class. He's very athletic. He can scoot. And I'm looking back to all the quarterbacks in that final year, 2023, among 124 qualified quarterbacks. He was number 11 in broken plus missed tackles forced per attempt. That is 91st percentile, and these are all on just rush plays, obviously. 23rd in 10-plus yard run rate, 85th percentile. 23rd in yards after contact per attempt, 85th percentile. He can move, man. He is a very, very athletic quarterback. So don't think about him and be like, he's a cone, he's a statue. Like, he's going to move around the pocket. So I think y'all should be targeting J.J. McCarthy as your back-end QB2, QB3 in Superflex if the draft provides that for you. He's not someone that I want to draft out the gate and obviously start as my QB1 in a 1-quarterback league, but like, I think the floor of what he's going to do, plus the ceiling of just having this scheme there, is extremely, extremely high. And honestly, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking the under on that 25.5 touchdown line. So the last quarterback we have on this list is a rookie drafted this year, and it's not Cam Ward. It's actually Jaxson Dart in New York. And here's a guy that I want on my team in best ball drafts, and I'm going to be looking to hold on to in super flex drafts. Do I think he wins the starting job out the gate? No, I do not. I think that's Russell Wilson's job to lose, and he's going to lose it because the Giants' schedule is unbelievably hard. I don't know if you guys have looked at the schedules, but like the NFC North that I've just kind of been talking about for a minute, they have an incredibly difficult schedule because every team in that division is really, 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 really hard. The Giants have a harder schedule than those teams, as well as any other fucking team in the NFL. So the biggest hurdle for Jaxson Dart would be getting onto the field. However, Russell Wilson will not be able to get through the onslaught of this schedule in September and mid-October. I actually think Jaxson Dart probably gets on the field some point between the start of October and the end of October. And another reason I like Jaxson Dart is because the man can run. He can fucking scoot. If you look at his raw rushing numbers, they might not be there because college is weird, and if you get sacked, those count against your rushing totals, which is like a crazy, crazy thing. But if you're looking at the end of the year last year, how he finished his year, the last 5 games of the season, 10 rushes for 47 yards, 8 rushes for 50, 14 for 71, 13 for 77, 12 for 43. He is an athlete at the quarterback position. He's not necessarily a mobile quarterback, but he is an athlete back there. So again, don't be surprised if by year's end, Dart is starting in a lot of people's Superflex fantasy lineups. And in the fantasy playoffs, they have a string of Washington, Minnesota, Las Vegas. And those Minnesota-Las Vegas games are at home. So like Washington, yeah, good team, obviously, but shootout potential. Las Vegas, that's a team you want on your schedule. Minnesota, obviously just a good all-around team, but they're probably going to put up a lot of points. So I really like the schedule, and that's probably when Jaxson Dart will get on the field. So that is the last quarterback on this list. We're going to move over to tight ends, and I just want to drop this in here quickly. If you're looking for my rankings or a draft guide or whatever, it's not on sale yet, but the email list down below will let you know when the very, very discounted version of it goes live. Like, we're going to put it on pre-sale earlier than it goes live at a very, very cheap discount, along with like a partner incentive for one of our new partners coming up that you can get it for even cheaper than that. So if you want to get notified, obviously free to join the email list. I'll just link it down below, first thing in the notes. If you want to join that email list, as soon as the pre-order, the discounted draft guide goes live for you to purchase, I'll shoot you out an email. So just join that email list down below if you want everything that you need to be prepared for your fantasy football draft in 2025. Let's move over to the tight end position. And I gotta say, it's a strong rookie class. However, I don't know, like, the top 10 guys being drafted right now are pretty damn well established. I don't think there's a single one of them, outside of one of them, that I can really look at and be like, oh, he hasn't broken out yet. So it would be disingenuous to put them on this list. So I don't know if I'm betting my children's lives on any of these. Maybe I'll bet your children's lives. Maybe I'll bet JMO's firstborn daughter on these tight ends. But I'm not putting my personal kids on these guys. JJ McCarthy, though, you got my fucking first three borns. But I do want to run through the rookie class as a whole and just kind of give you my thoughts on all the guys that were top 50 picks, because you had a lot of them this year. You had, I think, 5 different tight ends that were top 50 picks in the NFL draft. We'll start off with Colston Loveland. Obviously goes number 10 overall to Chicago, and everyone's first thought is like, oh, Ben Johnson, look what he did with Sam Laporta as a rookie. I'm just very curious to see how this snap split up. Like, obviously they draft Colston Loveland to be a major part of this offense. You don't do that with the number 10 overall pick, but I will say, like, how do they use the 12 personnel versus the 11 personnel? 12 personnel, you just take Luther Burden off the field, right? 12 personnel is 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back. Do you just take Luther Burden off the field? Because then it's like, what's the point of drafting a guy number 40 overall if you're just going to take him off the field for 40%, whatever. 11 personnel, does that mean that Colston Loveland comes off the field and you're using Cole Kmet more as like a run-blocking tight end? I'm just not sure how they split the snaps up. And I think a lot of rookie tight ends, when they come into a situation where Sam Laporta goes into Detroit, they don't have another single tight end that can even like sniff his fucking jockstrap over there. Cole Kmet's a reasonable veteran tight end that I think will stay on the field for a good chunk of time this year. Like, regardless of what you think about him, or regardless of his fantasy upside, he's still a real-life good football player that will take snaps from Colston Loveland. And Mike Clay, who works for ESPN, he does really, really good projections in the offseason, has Loveland at 81 targets, 54 catches, 592 yards, and 4 touchdowns, which is a really solid rookie year fantasy-wise. That would have had him finish tight end 15 last year, right between Cade Otton and Kyle Pitts. So obviously it could be a weak tight end year. He has those numbers and like sneaks into tight end 11 or 12, which I think are reasonable. And I do think with rookies, you do get that like second half juice more so than other years, obviously. But I do think the comparison of Loveland straight to Sam Laporta is a little bit lazy, because Sam Laporta jumped in immediately as a full-time player as a rookie tight end from like week 1, which is extremely uncommon. And they did not have a guy like Cole Kmet there, which is like my biggest cause for concern with all of the, the Colston Loveland. You have Rome Odunze, you have DJ Moore, you have Luther Burden there. It's like, how do these targets really get split up? And is there a ceiling for Loveland? And I have the same questions for Tyler Warren out in Indy. I had Tyler Warren above Colston Loveland as a dynasty prospect, straight up. Like, I love Tyler Warren as a player, but you are now again in Indianapolis with a really unsure quarterback situation. Richardson, Daniel Jones, neither of them are accurate quarterbacks. You're splitting snaps with Josh Downs over the middle, who I think is a really talented player. Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce. And one of the tougher pills to swallow here is just like the offense just runs through JT when he's healthy, right? If Jonathan Taylor is healthy and active, it is all him. Even when, like, looking back with Joe Flacco, the pass attempts per game were not dictated by Joe Flacco. They were actually dictated by Jonathan Taylor. In the games when Jonathan Taylor didn't play, when Joe Flacco was the starter, they threw the ball 41 times per game. In the games when Jonathan Taylor was playing, the Colts threw the ball 27.7 times per game. When Gardner Minshew was the starter 2 years ago, he averaged fewer than 20 pass attempts per game. And for whatever reason, the fantasy community is like obsessed with Daniel Jones being like some savior and so much better than Anthony Richardson. Like, I just think this whole offense is going to be likely run in a similar manner to Gardner Minshew, who had like a couple good games, but the passing volume was not there. If JT is healthy, it's going to be running through him. My concern for Tyler Warren is not for him as a player or his dynasty outlook. It is very much completely contingent on just this year being concerned about his redraft value. But again, there are some values, I think, in redraft with the rest of the rookie tight ends. So the rookies 3, 4, 5 that went off the board were Mason Taylor, 42nd overall to the New York Jets, has some of the strongest hands in this class. Like, they jump off the film. Guy does not drop anything over the middle. Actually reminds me a little bit of Sam Laporta and his film. 1.8% drop rate, which was number 1 in the country. And a lot of people bring up the fact that, like, oh, Justin Fields is going over to New York. We're going to look at Garrett Wilson like we looked at DJ Moore. They had a big year together. Justin Fields and Cole Kmet were really productive together as well. So if Mason Taylor steps in as a starter right away, like, him and Justin Fields could have some good chemistry because they got nothing else on the depth chart there. So I like Mason Taylor a lot. You got Terrence Ferguson that goes to the Rams, 46th overall. Ferguson is Oregon's all-time leader among tight ends in receptions and receiving touchdowns. He ran the fastest 40-yard dash, 4.63, for tight ends at the Combine, and he tied for the quickest 10-yard split. You still have Tyler Higbee there in L.A., but when Sean McVay goes out and kind of handpicks an offensive player this early, I think you just kind of have to have your eyes open. Higbee is 32. He's coming off a season where he missed most of it with injuries. So, like, I don't know how long he is for this year. And then the last top 50 pick is Elijah Arroyo, 50th overall to Seattle. Pass catching tight end out of Miami, can be a very, very big play guy. Noah Fant just really hasn't shown shit over the last couple of years. You have a new OC and regime. They're looking to probably move into the Elijah Arroyo era as, again, a top 50 pick. 6'5", 250, 4.64 guy. Averaged nearly 17 yards per reception playing with Cam Ward last year. 17 yards per reception for a tight end is crazy. I will say 9.1 yards after catch per reception. Led the class, obviously. That's an insanely high number. Did have a really, really big breakaway, like 75, 80-yard touchdown, which boosted the numbers because he's not an extremely high-volume guy. So something like that is going to boost the yards per reception, the yards after contact, or yards after catch per attempt, whatever. But he did have 8 catches of 20-plus yards last year. So he is a big play. And I think that makes sense given, like, the makeup of Seattle's offense. You lose DK, you lose Tyler Lockett. JSN and Cooper Kupp are both slot guys. You need a little bit more explosiveness down the field. So I think Elijah Arroyo could be a player this year as well. Just a very underratedly strong rookie tight end class. Like, the top 2 guys are top tier, right? Loveland, 10 overall, Tyler Warren, 14th overall. But just for reference, just a couple years ago, Trey McBride was the first tight end drafted in his draft class that year. He was picked 55 in the NFL draft. All 5 of the guys that I just went through were picked before Trey McBride. So just keep that in mind. Outside of the rookies, there are 3 second-year, third-year veteran type of players that I will be drafting significant shares of. The very first one, who is a top 10 tight end right now per ADP, is Tucker Kraft. I think there is a very, very real chance that Tucker Kraft elevates himself into that, like, TJ Hawkinson tier. I love Tucker Kraft coming out. He was like one of my guys in that draft class. Great second year, just completely overtook any chance of Luke Musgrave showing any signs of life. Like, he had a good rookie year where he was competing with a lot of young targets and was drafted after Luke Musgrave. So they wanted Luke Musgrave to be the guy. He overtook Musgrave, then had the typical second-year leap. 50 catches, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. Single highest snap rate among tight ends last year. 83% of snaps he was on the field for. He led all tight ends. 14.9 yards per reception, 10.4 yards after catch per reception. He is a big play waiting to happen. Top 5 in EPA per target. 10 plays of 20-plus yards. Tied for 4th. His explosive rate, percentage of his targets that he turned into 20-plus yards, number 2 only behind George Kittle. This offseason, Packers head coach Matt LaFleur came out, asked about whether Tucker Kraft can fulfill a George Kittle, Travis Kelce role. 100%. I think that's on us to make sure that we find him and we feature him. When he gets the ball in his hands, you feel him. All right, so he kept talking him up. I'm very, very excited for Tucker Kraft for him to take the next step in his journey, in his adventure. Next up, we got Isaiah Likely. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing with Isaiah Likely. Like, I'm not going to be able to make a logical case about why he is going to have a breakout this year as opposed to last year. I will say Mark Andrews is clearly on the decline. Had a lot of touchdowns last year, but his counting stats and just his overall involvement continue to go down year by year by year by year. Tweeted this out as well. It's been 22 games. 22 games since Mark Andrews has topped 70 receiving yards. Isaiah Likely did it 3 times just last year as the backup. He only ran 45 fewer routes than Mark Andrews did last year. So here's the thing. I can't predict when Isaiah Likely is really going to have the breakout, but I think at this point we can predict that when he does get that job, he is breaking out. Like, he immediately becomes that top 5 tight end in fantasy that we've been waiting for. So I'd rather just continue to throw very low draft capital at Isaiah Likely with the upside. There are very few guys like him that you can draft that late in drafts and get that type of upside. Like you're getting guys at pick 140, 150, 160, 170 because they have very little upside. They're just like cogs in their offense, but likely if he takes over that starting role, becomes a damn near league winner. So we love a little Isaiah Likely. We like Brenton Strange. I don't know if we love him, but we do like him. It just makes a lot of sense. In Jacksonville, you have Evan Ingram departing. He feels like one of the true under the radar breakout tight ends this year. You look at Liam Cohen, did great work with Cade Otton when Mike Evans or Chris Godwin were out. I think Strange showed some promise last year. He's a very athletic tight end in an offense that is kind of ripe for opportunities outside of Brian Thomas Jr. They got no more Christian Kirk. They got no more Gabe Davis. And Travis Hunter comes in, but we're yet to see what his involvement is. And I think T-Law likes throwing to the tight end, as we've seen year over year over year since he's entered the NFL. So we like Brenton Strange. And then I like Jatavian Sanders. He's the last guy on this list. He was a rookie last year, missed a lot of time with an injury, but the limited sample that we did see tied up with the fact that Bryce Young is expected to take a nice third-year leap based off what we saw in the second half of last year. I like Jatavian Sanders. A lot of people liked him coming out of Texas as a prospect, and he looked good on the NFL field in his limited sample. All right? So, I don't know. Based off that list, I feel like your kids are safe. I feel like my kids are safe. I feel like your kids are safe. I feel like J-Mo's daughter is safe. I feel like we're all safe here. All right? If you feel good about the list, let me know down below. Hit the button that looks like this. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And make sure if you want the heavily discounted BDGE 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, go sign up for that email list down below. I'll shoot you over an email when that stuff goes live. One-time purchase now, and then, in September, you will thank yourself for making that shtick now. All right? So, love you. I'll see you in a couple days probably. Smoke cheese.